Saram everyone, a warm and loving welcome to all the visitors and members. Let's begin our service today by asking Swami, who is present here, to awaken within us purity, unity, and divinity. Happy Easter to all of us. Thank you all so much for taking time and making it to the center this afternoon. Indeed, it's a special day in many ways. To begin with, this afternoon we have two wonderful, ardent devotees of, Bhagwan are going to share their thoughts on, Easter Sunday and the significance of, Easter, and also in relationship with Swami's teaching, right? That's coming up in a next few minutes. And also, during the course of this afternoon program, I'm also going to share once again. But next Sunday, starting at 2 o'clock, trust me, there'll not be any delay next Sunday. Not next Sunday, coming Saturday, 23rd April, Saturday afternoon, 2 o'clock. Next Sunday, we are not going to meet because we are having a mini retreat this, Saturday. So Dr. Privi Shankar from California is coming, and there will be music all over, between talks and after talk and so on. And it's going to be a very, very, special mini retreat next Saturday. So please put in every effort and, give your best to be here. And also spread the word. This is Swami's love. Let us all share with, all the, like-minded. We never know, where the message will go and who will start, working on what, right? That is how Swami, showers his love and shares his love. So as his, children, let us, spread the word and share this invite with, all our near and dear. So again, in a next few minutes, we are having, these wonderful ardent devotees of Swami, will be coming and sharing their thoughts with us. And Easter Sunday, in many ways, it's very special. But if we all recall, 2011, March 24th, that early morning when we all have received that call, I still remember, my ears are, that day. It's like one end phone calls, another end, like his children, all of us were crying because, Swami left his physical body that day. I don't know what significance it has. Only God can, interpret, God's action. But, to my memory, it was a Easter Sunday as well. So without further delay, on behalf of all of us, I first and foremost thank Brother Frank and also Tom LaSanta to, accept and also honor our request to be coming, and sharing with us today. So if I can request Brother Frank to come on over and share your thoughts and share your love, Swami's love with all of us. Sai Ram.
Didn't think I could only see it from back there, and I thought, what is that? It is a light. So, as by way of housekeeping, I hope that my voice can be heard by everybody far in the back, and if you can't hear, just put up your hand and I'll repeat it because my head may move away from the microphone. But when I stopped to say a little prayer a minute ago, that's just an example of a wonderful tradition in the Sai family that typically, speakers, when they get up, they say a prayer. Well, it's altogether fitting and proper today that I should do that, because it's easy to get out of one's depth when speaking about Jesus and Swami. And so it's with no false humility that I say a prayer that what I say and the way I say it will reach your hearts as well as your minds. Now, the reason it's very important that we should celebrate Jesus in the Sai community is that I think that there is a special link and bond between Jesus and Swami. The reason I say that is not only, as Ravi just mentioned, that of all the times that Swami, all the times that Swami could have picked as the time that he would leave his body, he chose Easter Sunday. And beyond that, we know that Jesus went to India. I had that in my head, and one time I read that some questioners asked Swami about that, and he said, yes, Jesus did in fact go to India, and that when he was 12, maybe 13 years old, he was engaged to be married. But instead, he chose a different course. He wanted to join a camel trading group to go across to the Hindu Kush. And in fact, Swami said that the mother of Jesus, Mary, gave some of her wedding jewelry and sold it to be an underwriting of the trip that Jesus was about to take. The other thing that I hold is important is that in all the writings about Jesus and Swami, Swami cried. It was the first time that I saw that our beloved Swami shed tears when speaking about the way that Jesus suffered before he left this earth. That meant a lot to me. And perhaps less important, but I'll mention them in passing. In preparing this talk today, I found out that Jesus had both brothers and sisters, that he had 4 brothers and he had some sisters, and that corresponds to what we know about our Lord, our Bhagavan. He too had siblings of both genders. And it's also worth noting that both Jesus and Swami came into this world through a virgin birth. Lastly, and perhaps less important, but it's worth noting, that both avatars chose for the country of their birth a country that was subjugated at the time that they came into the body. In the case of Jesus, his land was under the oppression of the Roman soldiers, and of course Swami was born during the British Raj. In today's talk, I want to divide it into the miracles of Jesus and the teachings of Jesus. As regards the miracles, there were, first of all, the healings. And then there's another category which I'll call the transmutations. As regards the healings, Jesus was a fantastic healer. There were healings of blindness, people who had leprosy, people who were lame, people who were possessed by evil spirits. And if it occurred once or twice in the Gospels, we would say, that's fantastic. People were born blind and now they can see. But no, time and again, the writers of the Gospel say, and Jesus healed all who came to him. thousands upon thousands, day in, day out. So it's a fantastic legend of healings. In particular, blindness. Now, back then, as now, who among us would want to lose their sight? If anything else happens, we want to be able to see. We don't want to be blind. One of the stories that comes to us is that of a man who, when Jesus was passing by, he said, "Jesus, Son of David, please let me see." And Jesus came up to the man, blessed him, and the man received his sight. Another time, there was a man who was blind, and Jesus said to him, "Come apart from the crowd." And the two of them went off to the side, and as the gospel story relates, Jesus spit on the ground, made a little slurry, if you will, with his finger, and put that on the eyelids of the man. And then he asked him, he said, "Can you see now?" And the man said, "A little bit." He said, "Humans look like trees." And remarkably enough, Jesus did the same thing again. And he said, "Can you see now?" And the man said, "Yes, I can see everything clearly." So the reason I mention that is, to my mind, that indicates a person learning to use divine power. And the only analogy I can think of, it's not a pleasant one, but it's meaningful. During the First World War, you know, people who were shooting howitzers or cannons, they would shoot off, and they would have somebody further along with binoculars, and they'd say, "Oh no, that shot went too far." So then the person with the gun, the cannon, the howitzer, the mortar, they would shoot again, and they'd get some feedback. No, that wasn't far enough. And in that way, they zeroed in on the amount of power it took to do the job. And when I read that story of Jesus healing the man by the twofold application, I think, that's the way we humans are. So it to me spoke of the humanity of Jesus. Now, there were other cases where when Jesus healed somebody, it wasn't because of the faith, apparently, only of the person. Many times Jesus would say, "Your faith has cured you." But there's a story of a woman who had a 12-year-long bleedings. There was some issue of blood. She had gone to doctors. She didn't get any better. And she saw Jesus in the crowd, and she went over, and she had faith that she said to herself, "If I can only touch the hem of his garment, I'll be cured." So she did it. She touched him. And very interestingly, Jesus said to his apostles right next to him, "Who touched me?" And they said to him, "What do you mean, who touched you? We're being jostled and pushed about right and left." He said, "I felt the power go out of me." And then he turned and he saw the woman at his feet begging for forgiveness because she thought she might have done something out of protocol. And he said, "Your faith has cured you." So he felt the power go out of him, it wasn't just the faith of the woman. Now, we can see that Jesus didn't cure just by faith, but there was some fantastic ability to project his will outside of him. And it showed up most strikingly in people who were dead. There was a 12-year-old girl who died, and Jesus was on the way with the girl's father to cure the girl of her sickness. But before he got there, people came out and said, "You're too late. The girl has died." And he went on to the house, and even though the people said, "You can't do anything, she's dead," and Jesus said, "She's not dead, she's asleep," Jesus caused the girl to arise and be alive again. In that case, we may say, well, was the girl really dead? Was it some sort of suspended animation? In the second case that I want to mention today about rising from the dead, it's the more well-known case of Lazarus. Now, apparently, Jesus knew Lazarus beforehand. He was not a complete stranger, as was perhaps this young 12-year-old girl. When Jesus went to visit him, they said, "Oh, Lord, if you'd only been here earlier, perhaps you could have saved him, but he's dead now, a few days." And interestingly, Jesus wept. And that's intriguing to me. It spoke of a great compassion and empathy, and perhaps, well, it's a mystery to me why he cried. But at any rate, he went to the man. And in this case, decidedly and without question, the person was starting to decompose. There wasn't any question about whether he was alive or dead. I remember the Latin said, "Jam fadit," that is, already beginning to smell. And Jesus brought the man back to life. There's a similar story about our Swami, and the man's name, as I recall, was Ramachandran. He was a man who went to Puttaparthi with his wife. He passed away. The wife was very adamant, "I'm not going to take the body away or do anything with the body until Swami tells me." And there again, the body was starting to decompose. When finally Swami came, asked everybody to leave, blessed the body. When the people did come back into the room, Swami was feeding Horlicks. I remember that little detail because, as you know, Horlicks is something like Ovaltine in our country. He was feeding the man who had been dead. He was feeding him by hand. So there's a great similarity in the healings and the extent of healings of both. Perhaps without a doubt, though, the most outstanding thing that Jesus did was that of predicting his resurrection. He said on a number of occasions, "If you destroy this body, I will rebuild it in 3 days." And that is, to my mind, without parallel in the history of humanity. Now, there was a whole lot of fantastic transmutations, if you will, that Jesus did beyond the healings of bodies. There's the case of where he was at a wedding. They did not have enough wine. Jesus took water, blessed it, and it became wine. Of course, in the case of our Bhagavan, he took water, blessed it, they put it in cars, and the cars ran. There's 2 times that Howard Murphy mentions that he turned water into gasoline. Now, I was interested in a young man in the teachings about of Jesus and Swami when I heard about Swami, and I would want to share emphatically what was most important to both avatars was the primacy of love, before all and above all. Now, as regards the teachings of both avatars, I want to end this talk by saying that with Jesus, he stood up and he said, "I am that I am," which was a statement of his divinity. Now, that statement got him in trouble with the powers that be. By comparison, there was a young boy who ran out in front of Swami as Swami was getting ready to talk in Madras, and he ran up to him and he said, "Are you really God?" And Swami said, "Yes, I am God, but you are God too. The only difference between us is that whereas I realize it now, you do not yet realize it." So, in the big picture, Jesus affirmed his divinity, but Swami has affirmed not only his divinity, but ours. And Swami in 1983 or 1984 at his birthday celebration said, I am going to give you a great gift. And what he said was, say this mantra. Say and repeat often, I am God, I am God, I am not different from God. And we in this room today have been blessed not only by the presence of Jesus in this world, but by Swami and Swami's tremendous gift to each of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Sai Ram. Tom, over to you. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, brothers and sisters. Thank you, Frank. You've eliminated about 80% of what I was going to say. So I'm done. Just kidding. You know how I like to make people laugh. And I think I can see why Swami had me change the direction of what I was going to speak on in talking about Jesus' miracles. I felt inclined really this morning to just talk about the experiences that I've had as a child being a Catholic and growing up as a Catholic and also experiencing difficulty in understanding the spirituality of Christianity and the Catholic Church. And I want to, some of the stuff I'm going to try to make is humorous. And if you don't laugh, I'll be hurt. But as a child, it really started when I went to parochial school. And I had these little imaginations in my mind about God and the fact that we had to go to confession. And as we go to confession, the priest basically speaks to the Lord and gives us absolution. And as a 9-year-old boy, I asked the nun, let me ask you something. If we sin and we can't confess our sins, are we going to go to hell for eternity? I can't believe I said this. And she said, well, no, you're just a child. You know, you're innocent, so you're not going to have any problem with that. You know, but as you grow and you get your first Holy Communion and you basically live by the laws of God, then you'll have transformation. And I went, okay, well, thank you. But if God is a loving God, why would he send someone to hell for eternity? You should have seen the look on her face, like, where is this guy getting this? And she says no, and she went through the process again. And this, over the years, really did give me some problems. I would feel guilt growing up as a child, as a teenager, and as a young man. And I can honestly say that throughout my time as a child, my grandmother and my mother and my aunts used to take me to church all the time. And when I went there, they would do what they call the Stations of the Cross, where Jesus was basically going from one point to another until he went to the crucifixion. And so sometimes they would be there for hours, and I could feel this wonderful energy in the church. And I was totally happy in being in that church. The first time I really realized that was when I went to Prashanti. And I think I want to talk about some of the things, some of the miracles that happened to me while I was um, when I came to the fold. And of course, Cosby, business was very difficult at that time when I worked for Cosby. And at one point I said, we need some more land. I'm running out of product and, I'm independently poor. I did it all by myself. And Cosby said, well, I'm going to India. And I went, oh, that's great. Why are you going to India? And he says, well, there's a man called Sai Baba, and people believe him to be an incarnation of Jesus. And I went, oh, God. Why do I attract these crazy people in my life? And I said, well, how long are you going to be gone? He said, well, a couple of weeks, and I'll be back. And he came back. He had a glow about him. Most of you know Cosby, but Cosby's pretty down, pretty low profile. He had a glow about him that really just very, very serene and very peaceful. And then he started talking about Sai Baba. He showed me a picture of Sai Baba. He said, had an afro, orange robe, dress. And I said, he kind of looks like Jimi Hendrix. Those of you that know who Jimi Hendrix is, he was a great guitar player, but he had a big fro. And then he took out this white powder. And he said, do you see this white powder? I said, yes, I do see the white powder. He said, it has healing properties. This is called vibhuti. And I went, right, great. Thank you, Cosby, for sharing. And he says, and Cosby had a wart on his nose at that time. Was it something I said?
No, people want to hear people want to hear more and more from you. So I thought you can come a little bit closer and speak louder.
Okay. I won't eat the mic. Okay. It is an orange, and I love oranges. Oh, it is a little bit louder. So he proceeded to say, this healing power that this vibhuti has, I'm going to put it on my wart. He had a wart on the side of his nose, and he said, it's going to be healed. And I went, right, it's going to be healed. So about 8 days later, I came back to look at some contracts, and Cosby's wart was kind of bleeding, and it turned kind of a really pukey gray. And I went, that's great. Now you've put that vibhuti on there, or whatever you call it, and you've infected your nose, and they're going to have to probably cut off your nose. I want to see you sell real estate with no nose on your face. And so we both laughed. And then we had our first trip to India. And I really do want to talk about the miracles of that I experienced with Swami, but I also want to talk about the feelings that I had for Jesus throughout my life. So I'll get to those points. And Cosby and I went in for an interview when we got to Prashanti. And before that, Swami came out for darshan just one day, and I was thinking to myself, how am I supposed to evaluate whether someone's God or not? I don't. Excuse me, are you God? I mean, what do you do? How do you feel? How can you have confirmation within your heart and your soul if someone says that he's God and you're supposed to believe it? And I was really thinking about that during darshan. Within seconds, I felt this energy, and Swami had come out. He was looking in our direction. He wasn't looking at me, but he was looking in our direction. And I had this explosion of bliss inside, and I just started sobbing. I couldn't, the joy, the exhilaration, the sweetness. And there was a gentleman that was a preacher that was with our group at that time, and Haynes Kreider, and he was a very formal type of individual, and he was very self-contained. And I looked over at Haynes, and he was sobbing. He said, Tom, I ain't never felt this I've never felt this kind of love ever in my life. I really do believe he's God. And I went, I think you're right. And that was the beginning. With Jesus, as I was growing up as a young man, and eventually really putting the teachings of Jesus, there was always a void. There was always a void of, am I doing the right thing? Why don't I get closer? There was always a mix of emotions, and especially during my era, there was a lot of preoccupation with heaven and hell, especially hell. And I said, how can a God, not forgive you and send you to hell for eternity? And growing up, I really had to go through these emotions and stuff. And eventually, by the time I was 18, I kind of left the church based on some of the things that was going on with the church. And when I met Swami, that one time he gave me the answer, and he said, the divinity of God is within each and every one of you. Service to man is service to God. Love all, serve all. Do good, be good, see good. I've come to light the lamp of love in your heart that it may shine with greater luster. And then Nagesh and Diane and those of us, as times really, we got more and more time to spend with the homeless people. We would go underneath the bridges, and Diane and some of the ladies, Robin Geldner, would make soup, and we'd give it to the homeless. And then eventually we went into the parking lots near the police department and served them. And I remember one point, especially reading, he said, service to man is service to God, but you're serving the divinity within all of these people. They're your brothers, they're your sisters. And I remember thinking, it seems a little bit formal to me. So I was praying to Swami, and I got this silly idea. So I pulled into the parking lot, and I would always bring bananas and apples. So I raised the trunk, and the men were just looking at me. And I said, the fruit stand is open and the price is right. And they got this they got this big smile on their face. And I said, my brother from another mother, how you doing? And all of a sudden, it became family. It became like we were all there as brothers and sisters. I mean, there was not as many ladies as men. The impetus grew from that to doing service every week. And as I got into Swami, when I came to Puda Party, and I was blessed to be able to go to Puda Party over 25 times. Tommy and our little group used to go. I mean, back in those days, people were going to Puda Party almost on a consistent basis. And one of the things that I learned from Swami that is really important for all of us is forgiveness. And I was thinking about how difficult it is to forgive. I remember reading something by Swami saying, love is giving and forgiving, ego is getting and forgetting. To forgive is to empower the spirit to overcome the condemnation of the ego, with that battle that we go through inside. And over the period of time, I realized that with Swami's message, letting us know that the divinity of God is within each and every man, so that when we really see the divinity in ourselves and we can see the divinity in man, we're instruments of love, whether it's work or whether it's with your family, whether it's with your children. And the message of Jesus was very, very, very important to me, in that he basically, just like with Mary Magdalene, who my dear brother brought up, when the men said, because she sinned, her plight is that we stone her to death. And Jesus didn't say anything. He was putting his finger in the sand. He said, he who has no sin, throw the first stone. And they dropped the stones and they left. And at that point, Mary Magdalene ran to Jesus, and wept at his feet. And Jesus said, and let me read that because it was so lovely. He said, she washed his feet with her tears and dried his feet with her hair. Jesus said to her, daughter, your sins are forgiven because of the greatness of your love. Your faith has saved you. Go and sin no more. And there's so many episodes where, like Swami used to take healings from, poisons of the body, poisons of people that were crippled. My son and I, at one point when we were in Buddha Party, there was a small group of Indian people that were asked to go in for a darshan. And the one lady was in a wheelchair, and they brought the wheelchair up, and then two seva dolls helped bring her into the room. And when they came back, so my son and I said, nah, something's going on there. Let's just stay. Let's just stay and see. Because normally when Swami goes in for the interview, everyone leaves the mandir. And when the lady came up in the wheelchair, Swami basically waved over her knees and then asked her to stand up. She stood up and they went into the interview room. On the way back, after darshan was over, they came around and Swami, the Sevadal said she doesn't need the wheelchair. So when she came out the door, she had a lady and a man on either side of her, and they walked all the way to the back. Gregory and I rushed around the mandir to meet with them and asked them, and one of the fellows could speak English. It was an Indian family. And they said, well, I said, Swami must have healed her. He said, yes, he did. He said, how long had she been crippled like that? And the man said, no, she's been like that for 38 years. So when you don't use your muscles for 38 years, your legs are going to atrophy. So that was just the spontaneous reaction that we both had was, God can really accomplish anything, and he accomplishes everything within us. I've been very, very, very fortunate to have you as my brothers and sisters, and all the wonderful times that we've had together, the times that we've been singing bhajans together. And this family is so special because Swami has let us know that the divinity within man is Swami, and that we move in the direction of being loving and kind, respecting the divinity in each other, makes us what we are. And thank you very much. Sai Ram.
Thank you, Tom. Sai Ram. So there's a question came up. Either Frank or you can answer, saying that could you ask Frank or Tom to touch on the significance or meaning of why Jesus left for 3 days? Yeah, you can use the same mic.
Here. Why Jesus?
Okay, I repeat. So could you ask Frank or Tom to touch on the significance or meaning of why Jesus left for 3 days?
Why Jesus
L-
was dead for 3 days?
I think, something like this, right? He took an exit on Friday and again, reappeared back on Sunday. So, I think that's the question related to.
I really don't know, and I've never heard it discussed why 3 days. I don't know.
Fair enough, no problem. Sai Ram.
Should I stay for a minute if there's any other questions?
Do we have any other questions?
Okay.
I think we are good. No, thank you both for, joining and honoring our request and making a special celebration today. If I can ask, request Brother Jim Peavy to, give a token of love to both, brothers Frank and Tom. Nagesh Bhaiya, can you, give it to Jim? In the meantime, Rahul, all the singers, get back into the hall. We need to start the devotion program like now. Jim, come on over and hand it over to Frank. Yeah, just go back. Thank you so much, Sairam. So while we are setting up, Sairam, dear brothers and sisters, once again, reminder, next coming Saturday at 2 o'clock, we are starting the program. It's going to be a very special, very memorable program that day. Please, spread the word and individually let all of us put in every effort to be here. Okay, 2 o'clock, and the program would go on till about 7 p.m. that day. Thank you. Let's dive into the devotion program.
गजानना शुभानना गौरी मनोहरा शिवनन्दना पशुपति तनया गजानना परमनिरञ्जन शुभानना हे पशुपति तनया गजानना परमनिरञ्जन शुभानना हे परमनिरञ्जन शुभानना गौरी मनोहरा शिवनन्दना गौरी मनोहरा शिवनन्दना गजानना शुभानना गौरी मनोहरा शिवनन्दना
Yuga Yuga Ki Avatara Sai Rama Sai Krishna Sai Baba Yuga Ki Avatara Zoroaster Mahavir Sai.
Buddha Zoroaster Mahavir Sai.
Buddha Zoroaster Mahavir Sai.
Buddha Zoroaster Mahavir Sai.
Ram Rahim Jai Ram Rahim Jai Ram Rahim Jai Ram.
Ram Rahim Jai Ram Rahim Jai Ram Rahim Jai Ram.
Ram Rahim Jai Ram Rahim Jai Ram Rahim Jai Ram.
Ram Rahim Jai Ram Rahim Jai Ram Rahim Jai Ram.
Yuga Yuga Ki Avatara Sai Ram Sai Krishna Sai Baba. Baba Sai Baba Baba Sai Baba. Yuga Yuga Ki Avatara Sai Ram Sai Krishna Sai Baba. Allah Isu Nanakasai.
Allah Ishu Nanak Sai.
Buddha Zoroaster Mahavir Sai.
Buddha Zoroaster Mahavir Sai.
Ram Rahim Jai Ram Rahim Jai Ram Rahim Jai Ram.
Ram Rahim Jai Ram Rahim Jai Ram Rahim Jai Ram.
Ram Rahim Jai Ram Rahim Jai Ram Rahim Jai Ram.
Ram Rahim Jai Ram Rahim Jai Ram Rahim Jai Ram.
Ram Rahim Jai Ram Rahim Jai Ram Rahim Jai Ram. Ho! Ram Rahim Jai Ram Rahim Jai Ram Rahim Jai Ram. Yuga Yuga Ki Avatara Sai Rama Sai Krishna Sai Baba.
जय जय साई श्याम बाल गोपाल जय जय साई श्याम जय साई श्याम प्रेम भरो दिल में हमारे साई राम हमारे साई राम बड़े प्यारे साई राम प्रेम भरो दिल में हमारे साई राम हम भक्तों के तुम एक साई राम तुम्हारे जगत में बड़ा प्यारा प्यारा नाम संग रहो हरदम हमारे साई राम संग रहो हमारे साई राम सदा संग रहो हमारे साई बाल गोपाल जय जय साई श्याम
बुद्ध महावीर येशु साई बुद्ध महावीर येशु साई वाहे गुरु बोल बनवा वाहे गुरु बोल बनवा अल्लाह यीशु सतगुरु साई अल्लाह यीशु सतगुरु साई गीता वेद कुरान वसाई गीता वेद कुरान वसाई तन में साई मन में साई रोम रोम में साई साई वाहे गुरु बोल मनवा वाहे गुरु बोल मनवा बुद्ध महावीर येशु साई वाहे गुरु बोल मनवा अल्लाह यीशु सतगुरु साई गीता वेद बुद्ध महावीर येशु साई।
गुरु महिमा गाओ, महिमा गुरु महिमा गुरु महिमा गाओ, गुरु महिमा गाओ, गुरु महिमा सद्गुरु साई आनंद गुरु, सद्गुरु साई आनंद गुरु, सद्गुरु साई आनंद गुरु, सद्गुरु साई आनंद गुरु, ब्रह्मानंद आनंद गुरु, ब्रह्मानंद आनंद गुरु, सर्वधर्म सत्य साई गुरु, सर्वधर्म सत्य साई गुरु, सर्वधर्म सत्य साई गुरु, सर्वधर्म सत्य साई गुरु, गुरु की वाणी गाओ, गुरु की वाणी गुरु महिमा गुरु महिमा गाओ, गुरु महिमा सद्गुरु साई आनंद गुरु, ब्रह्मानंद आनंद गुरु, सर्वधर्म सत्य साई गुरु, सर्वधर्म सत्य साई गुरु, साई गुरु सत्य साई गुरु, साई गुरु सत्य साई गुरु, साई गुरु सत्य साई गुरु, सर्वधर्म सत्य साई गुरु, गुरु की वाणी गाओ, गुरु की वाणी गुरु महिमा गाओ।
साई बाबा सत्य साय अवतार of the Lord. Sai Ram. Every name is a holy name, Sai. Every form is a form divine. Sai Baba, Sai Baba, Satya Sai Avatar of the Lord. Let me reach you, dear Sai, let me reach you. Let me reach you inside of my heart. Let me please you, dear Lord, with my service. Let me serve you, dear Lord, with my love. I surrender to you, I surrender to you, Lord Sri Sai Ram. I surrender to you, I surrender to you, Lord Sri Sai Ram. Sai Baba, Sai Baba, Satya Sai Avatar of the Lord. Rama, Krishna, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Zoroaster, Sai Ram. Every name is a holy name, Sai. Every form is a form divine. Sai Baba, Sai Baba, Satya Sai Avatar of the Lord. Let me shoot your Sai, let me reach you, let me reach you inside of my heart. Let me please you, dear Lord, with my service. Let me serve you, dear Lord, with my love. I surrender to you, I surrender to you, Lord Sri Sai Ram. I surrender to you, I surrender to you, Lord Sri Sai Ram. I surrender to you, I surrender to you, Lord Sri Sai Ram.
रही मन राम रही रही मन राम रही साई राम कृष्ण हरि साई राम कृष्ण हरि मन रही मन राम रही साई राम कृष्ण करी दूर भजो आशा नानक साई ईशु पिता प्रभु साई तुम हो भजो रे मनवा राम रही राम रही साई कृष्ण करी राम रही साई रही मन रही मन राम रही
Love is my form, truth is my bread. This is my food. Love is my form, truth is my bread. This is my food. My life is my message, expansion is my life. My life is my message, expansion is my life. No reason for love, no reason for love, no word, no day. No reason for love, no reason for love, no word, no day. Satya Ananda, Shanti Ananda, Satya Ananda, Shanti Ananda. Shirdi Sai, Satya Sai, Prema Sai, Jai Jai. Shirdi Baba, Satya Baba, Prema Baba, Jai Jai. Shirdi Sai, Satya Sai, Prema Baba, Jai Jai. Shirdi Baba, Satya Baba, Prema Baba, Jai Jai. Love is my form, truth is my bread, praise is my food. My life is my form, truth is my bread, praise is my food. My life is my message, expansion is my life. My life is my message, expansion is my life. No reason for love, no reason for love, no word, no day. No reason for love, no reason for love, no word, no day. Satya Ananda, Shanti Ananda, Satya Ananda, Shanti Ananda. Shirdi Sai, Satya Sai, Prema Sai, Jai Jai. Shirdi Sai, Satya Sai, Prema Sai, Jai Jai. Shirdi Baba, Satya Baba, Prema Baba, Jai Jai. Shirdi Baba, Satya Baba, Prema Baba, Jai Jai. Shirdi Sai, Satya Sai, Prema Sai, Jai Jai. Shirdi Sai, Satya Sai, Prema Baba, Jai Jai. Shirdi Baba, Satya Baba, Prema Baba, Jai Jai. Shirdi Baba, Satya Baba, Prema Baba, Jai Jai. Love is my warm, truth is my bread, bliss is my food.
Dear Swami, lead us from this transient world into the everlasting world of bliss. Give us the effulgence of your grace and illumine our souls with truth. Save us from the cycle of birth and death and destroy the cravings of our minds. Let all beings in all the worlds be happy always. Om peace, peace, peace.
Swami Satya Sai Hare, Bhagavata Sampraya.
जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की
जय परमं पवित्रं बाबा विभूतिं परमं विचित्रं लीला विभूतिं परमार्थ इष्टार्थ मोक्ष प्रदातं बाबा विभूतिं इदमाश्रयामि Sacred, holy and supreme is Baba Vibhuti, going forth in everything is Baba Vibhuti. So auspicious is His mind, it grants liberation. Baba Vibhuti, His power protects me. Paramam Pavitram Baba Vibhuti, Paramam Vichitram Leela Vibhuti.